Welcome back. All right, so after taking a day off yesterday from this series, today I'm going to talk about the LA Kings, a team that did lose in the first round, but this is progress. And now it's a matter of making sure that that progress continues. Now that they're back in the playoffs, you want to stay there. And of course, the perception is the Pacific is easier for them to get in that division than it would have been in others. Can they sustain it? Other teams are going to bounce back. So we'll see. But there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic if you're a Kings fan right now. The record this year was 44, 27, and 11. The record going into the playoffs in April was 7, 4, and 1. I thought they were playing well. And then they lose in the first round against the Oilers in 7 games, and there's no shame in that. These things happen, right? So the key thing is that it felt like in the playoffs there were some young players who kind of came into their own. Kempe, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points. Very good player for them going forward. Trevor Moore, absolutely amazing season he had altogether. 2 goals, 3 assists. Danault had 3 goals and 2 assists. Danault had a career year after coming over from Montreal and showed if he's put with the right line mates, he can absolutely produce a lot of offense. Grundstrom, 3 goals and 1 assist for him. He picked a good time as his contract is up, so he picked a good time to have a very good playoff and argue that, hey, I'm a key guy going forward. And then Stetcher, 2 goals and 2 assists. He's a pending unrestricted free agent. We'll see if he did enough to stay in LA. I think so, but again, Rob Blake has a lot of options here, and he has a lot of cap space to work with. According to Cap Friendly, they have $20 million in cap space for the Kings for next year. That'll help them a lot in terms of being able to, go out and sign a free agent or two if they want to. And, of course, with the retirement of Dustin Brown, that does free up a lot of that money, right? So their playoff goaltending is interesting to me because Jonathan Quick clearly he's still the man, right? 3 and 4, 904 save percentage. Peterson didn't get a decision in his one appearance and he ended up with an 800 save percentage. Now we'll go through the regular season numbers for the scoring and then I'll come back to the goaltending because I do think there's a discussion to be had. Kopitar, 19 goals, 48 assists, 67 points, was their leading scorer to the surprise of no one. Anze Kopitar is always the leading scorer for the LA Kings. Kempe, 35 goals, 19 assists for 54 points. The 35 goals, obviously a career high for Kempe, and I think it's sustainable. I'd like to see a few more assists, but 35 goals is fantastic. Danault, 27 goals, 24 assists, 51 points. As I said, a career year for him. Excellent debut year for him with the Kings. Arvidsson, 20 goals, 29 assists, 49 points. He also had a very good first year with the Kings. Clearly, when they were doing their pro scouting and figuring out who was going to be in the roster and who wasn't, they made the right decisions. And then there's Moore, who's come along slowly, but the 17 goals, 31 assists, 48 points he put up this year, I think that's just the start. I think we're going to see more points from Moore this coming season. I think he'll easily be 50 plus. And that really is an interesting look that they have for the Kings right now. There's some good depth. It's hard to shut them down. There isn't just one line that you have to worry about. And so things bode well. But let's go back to the goaltending. Jonathan Quick during the regular season, 23, 13, and 9, 910 save percentage. Peterson, 20, 14, and 2 with an 895 save percentage. Now, as a Cal Peterson fan, surprised at the low save percentage. Surprised that Quick is still the better of the 2 goaltenders, not as a way of putting down Quick, because I wouldn't do that, but because I thought Peterson would have been at that next level by now, and his contract states he should be, because the extension, which is a $5 million cap hit per year, kicks in next season. So Peterson should have been the starter, should be the starter next year, but is he going to be the starter for the LA Kings? And if not, then what does that mean for his future with the team? Does he end up on the market at some point? And if we see similar numbers from these goaltenders next year, how does LA proceed from there? Because again, the bar's been raised now. The expectation's going to be in the playoffs or near the playoffs. And if this team gets off to a slow start, and if Peterson doesn't have a save percentage of, say, at least 910 or higher, what moves get made? Obviously, Todd McClellan's job could end up being in some form of jeopardy if this team gets off to a bad start next year. But again, that's all speculation because there's a lot of moves to be made here. So they're pending UFAs. Dustin Brown's contract was ending anyways, and he retired. Athanasiou is a pending UFA. I thought he played well. I think if he wants to stay in LA, they make room for him. Edler, when healthy, very good. The key thing with Edler, of course, being when healthy, and as he gets older, that could become more of an issue. Oli Mata, obviously the cap hit would probably come down for Mata off what it was this year, but they could really remake that blue line with the 20 million in cap space. You have Stetcher also expiring, and Martin Firk, who was in the minors. And it's too bad because Firk's got a fantastic shot. He can blast it at 100 plus miles an hour. But yeah, there are just parts of his game that NHL GMs just don't have faith in, and so he's been stuck in the minors through most of his career. And then the RFA list is interesting too, and it's going to eat into that 20 million. Kempe, RFA, that's going to eat into it quite a bit. Brendan Lemieux, a little bit. Gabe Vilardi, another player I'm surprised by the fact he's not in the NHL on a regular basis. I think that'll change next year, but I expected that to change this year too, and he still ended up spending a lot of his season in the minors. So we'll see if now he's ready and he comes up and he plays and what happens there. And of course, Byfield being able to take that next step would be huge for them as well. Elias Anderson, Elias Anderson to me is one of those guys that I wouldn't be surprised if they said we're not going to qualify him and he's going to go to the unrestricted free agent market. There certainly will be a number of players that end up having that route decided for them by the team. Grundstrom, as I said, Grundstrom came into his own in the playoffs. I think he's earned himself a pretty decent bridge contract. It's not going to be a really long-term, I wouldn't think. And then Mikey Anderson, who is a very good defenseman. Underrated blue line in LA. Sean Durzi, part of that underrated blue line. I'm a huge fan of Durzi. I would lean towards probably a 4-year deal for Durzi if you could do it for a decent cap hit. And it might be one of those contracts that becomes a bargain pretty quickly after it's signed. And Mo Verare, who, again, with so many young players in their lineup and whatnot, there's a lot of reason for a belief that a guy like Mo Verare could end up being a regular next year. Of course, not on the board. I don't get into the prospect side of it yet. The prospect side of it's more for season previews and such. But Turcotte, is Turcotte going to be a top 6? Could he be a top 6 next year? Does he need more time? Question marks that are there, but this is already a team that was in the playoffs, right? So we'll see how much cap space they have left over after Kempe signs his extension and after they bring somebody back on the blue line, or they figure out somebody new for the blue line as well, because again, I think they have the space to make that happen. So if you look at their playoffs over the last decade, 2012 isn't on the board. They won the Cup 2012. 2013, they lost the conference finals in 5 games against Chicago. LA and Chicago were the top 2 teams in the West for about 4 years there. 2014, they won the Stanley Cup again, and in 2015, they missed the playoffs. 2016, they finish in the playoffs, but they lose in the first round against San Jose in 5. 2017, no playoffs. 2018, a pretty famous series against the Vegas Golden Knights. Famous because LA gets swept, and Jonathan Quick was absolutely ridiculous. Fantastic series by Quick. And then following that sweep, they missed the playoffs for 3 years in a row. And this year, of course, they lose in that return to the playoffs against the Edmonton Oilers. So the question with the LA Kings for me is still, is this sustainable? I think it can be. There could be a lot of turnover with this team in the offseason. Losing Dustin Brown is not nothing. And so we'll see how things go from here. Let me know your thoughts about the LA Kings in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happen upon this video. And yes, the background has changed a little bit today, hasn't it? And it's going to continue to change. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.